everyone. Welcome to the Fingerprints podcast. We're your hosts, Nicole and Phoebe.
Today we would like to introduce you to our next guest, Alex. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello Nicole, my name's Alex. I work as an English teacher at St Clair's College and I've done so for the last 9 years.
So what's your story?
Well, my story is that I haven't always taught here and I haven't always been as happy in my job. It's about 15 years ago. I was working for an advertising company in London and I was doing a job analysing data that really wasn't my skill set, wasn't my passion.
Okay.
And so I thought, I want to change my life. How can I do this? And the obvious thing was, let's go travelling, let's do this. And I thought, I want more than that. I thought I wanted to go travelling to South America, but I wanted it to turn into a job afterwards.
Okay.
So I saw a job advert for a travel company where you could specialise in just a couple of countries. And there was a number on the website to call the chief executive. So I called him and left a message. About 2 months later, he called me back while I was working in my current job. So I stepped out, a bit shocked, and he said, "You called me?" I said, "Yes, I'd like to work for you." I explained the situation. He said, "Well, you need to go to those countries in South America." I wanted to go to Argentina and Chile. "Go and get experience, come back, get in touch." So what I learned from this is, sometimes you have to create your opportunity. You have to go and take it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I did. I quit my job. I went traveling for 6 months. Halfway through, I bumped into an old friend from university.
Oh, okay.
And we were both travelling on the same bus to the southernmost city in the world. And ironically, I tried to find him in England for years and years and years, couldn't get hold of him. I meet him on this bus. He then says to me one day, we travelled up together and we went to the capital, Buenos Aires, for Christmas. One day he said, "Let's go to this restaurant nightclub," which really wasn't my scene. But I said, okay, why not? And it was there that I ended up meeting my now wife, because my friend was speaking to one of her colleagues from work. She was there on sort of a work party, Christmas party. I didn't speak Spanish. He brought her over because she spoke English. That's how we met. So again, it set off another chain of events in my life. So choices, and some worked out and some didn't, but we had to keep making choices. So I moved back to England. Came back to England, I started working for this travel company. I invited my now wife over. Cut a very long story short, it didn't really work out. I enjoyed those countries, but I wasn't very good at selling. I was really bad at selling. And so again, that teaches me a lesson, that you may like some aspects of a job, but if you don't like the main aspect of the job, you're not going to enjoy it and you're not going to be good at it. No. And so I decided to cut my losses and we both moved to Mallorca. That's another long story. But I ended up working in a hotel, nights in a hotel. Now this wasn't the plan. I turned 30 when I was at that hotel. My wife was doing various jobs, again, difficult life there. But it taught me a lot of things. It taught me to deal with crisis management. There were drunk people jumping in swimming pools. There were couples arguing. There were fights. There were Elvis lost his wig. All kinds of things. I had to do an interview in Spanish, which frightened me at the time. But I learnt so much. But again, this wasn't the dream. So we moved back to Argentina. So I was in Argentina. I couldn't really speak Spanish. What am I going to do? I've just turned 30. I volunteered with my wife at a refuge for animals. Well, really it was a place where people just dumped their animals and we tried to look after them. And as I was walking a dog that's kept in a cage, so I was walking this dog one day to try and give it some exercise, this woman started running towards me. And I was like, oh my God, what's she doing? And the first thing she said was, they told me you're an English teacher. You tell me you're English. No, she said, they tell me you're English. Because I wasn't an English teacher at all at this time. And I was like, yes, I'm English. Because in this part of Argentina, no English people live.
Okay.
Right? It's to the south of the capital. It's not a tourist place. She said to me, I run an English school, English language school. Will you come for one day and just meet the students? They've never met an English person. I said, sure, happy to do that. And so I went around the classrooms and talked a bit, and I think I did it twice maybe, and then she said to me, right, because this was in November, December, their school year starts after Christmas. She said, will you teach 2 classes after Christmas? Will you teach some like 14, 15-year-olds, and also an older group who were doing Cambridge exams, Cambridge Advanced exam? And that's how I got into teaching. From that chance meeting, I say chance meeting, I took the opportunity to travel, to change job, to go to Argentina. I met this lady through volunteering. I recommend volunteering, which then set me on the path to be a teacher. So eventually we moved back to England, and after 6 months at a different college, I've been here ever since. It's a job I really enjoy, and I often think back to 15 years ago when I dreaded going to work.
Yeah.
And, you know, I try and recommend everyone now, find your passion, and not just part of the passion of a job, really try and find a job where you're going to like nearly everything, you know. And so I feel that's the kind of story of my life. I had to change something dramatically, and I'm grateful that I did.
Yeah, very interesting. So, Alex, you mentioned that you wanted to change your life. Was it easy to decide on that change?
It wasn't easy to decide, but what I did was I wrote down some of my interests and passions. I think I'd been recommended to do this by someone, and I realised that I liked South America. I'd been there the year before. I liked speaking with people and interacting with people, which was what I wasn't doing in my current job. I also like using my language and English. And so I wrote those things down, and something else that I did is I did lots of research. I went on the web, I read widely, I looked in newspapers to find opportunities, and that's how I found out about the travel company. Went on their website, saw that the chief executive, he had his personal number, you could call him and leave a message, and so my life changed based on that conversation.
It's interesting. And which Southern American country did you enjoy the most? Was the culture very different?
I really liked Argentina. They're all beautiful in their own ways, but something about going to Buenos Aires I just loved. It seemed to have a mix of music and colour, vibrant people, history. And so when I visited for a week in 2005, I then thought I have to go back. And that's what really interested me. That place, it's got great landscapes, it's got passionate people. It was never a dull moment.
Amazing.
So you mentioned that at one point you were pretty devastated that you couldn't find a job that resonated with you. So
Yes.
what gave you hope and faith to find something that would fulfill your
Do you know,
passion?
that is a really good question, because I was very despondent. What gave me hope was that I just think if I kept searching, if I searched, that ultimately I would find something. I realised if I didn't search, nothing was going to change for me. So I then also decided that if I left a job I didn't enjoy, I actually decided whatever I did would be better. And taking some time out, meeting different people. When I went to South America, all I booked was a return flight. I didn't book anything else. I decided that I would live in a free way. I would meet people and make decisions on the spot. When I met my old friend from university, right in the south of South America, I had no plan. I just said to him, "Where are you staying?" And he had a hostel booked, and I went and stayed there for 2 weeks. And we just relaxed. We rented a car. Some days we just cooked and chatted, and and then he said, "Well, my plan is to go to the capital for Christmas." I said, "I don't have a plan." He said, "Well, meet me there." And life went on from that, and it was so nice to live in a free way. I recognise, people can't necessarily do that all the time, But doing it for 6 months at least led to, it's like the film Yes Man, or Yes, you know,
Yes.
the person who just says, I mean, I didn't say yes to everything, but most things I just went, all right, I'll have a go. Why not? I'll try.
Inspiring. So you mentioned creating your own opportunities. Do you think
Yes.
that when life doesn't throw you opportunities, you should create them yourself?
Even in the dark times, you do learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So when I worked in this hotel in Mallorca and dealt with crisis situations, and some of them are very serious situations as well. You know, sometimes couples arguing, and I didn't know what was going to happen, if there was going to be violence or there was going to be, I say there were people who were drunk in swimming pools, but I realised when I had interviews in the future that actually those experiences gave me a lot of things to talk about and how I had to handle that situations. But I would recommend, again, if you're unhappy with something, change it. You know, some people say it's not as easy. If you have rent to pay or a mortgage, you might not necessarily be able to just leave a job. But if you really dislike something and it's affecting your health mentally and physically, as it was affecting me, sometimes you've got nothing to lose, really. You really should do that. And by and large, if you try and you're willing, in most circumstances, maybe not in COVID-19, but in most circumstances, you will find something else which will then lead on to a better future.
So it seems like your profession kind of ended up finding you when that woman stopped you on the street and was like, hey,
Yes.
can you teach an English class?
Yeah.
So do you believe in this concept that when you just go out with not a concrete mission, but just a mission of finding something, that these things actually end up finding you, or that you attract them in some way?
Do you know, I think I learnt this from my wife. My wife always volunteers. So she was the volunteer at the animal centre there. But when she moved to England, she volunteered at charity shops, she volunteered at the community centre, and that then led on to other circumstances and possibilities. So I think sometimes we spend our life behind a computer sending out emails and CVs, and that can work. But sometimes you just have to physically go in person and turn up and express your services. When I've done that, it's worked. It worked where I am now. I turned up unannounced and said, I want to work here. And it worked out for me, and I'm here 9 years later. I did it out of desperation, because literally I thought we might have to move back to South America. I didn't have a job. And my son had literally been born 2 weeks before. It was a really tricky time. I think that the trick is to be able to do that when you're not in a desperate situation. Because again, when you have nothing to lose, I had nothing to lose, but sometimes you have to take a risk when you are in a comfortable position. You know, some people stay in a job, a career, a life, a relationship, just because it's what they do. Sometimes you do have to take a calculated risk, and it can push you to a much higher level. So I think that's something else I've learned, is don't wait until the last minute to chase your passion that maybe you should have done years before.
Wow. So now do you feel like you have your dream job?
Do you know, I think I do. And one of the ironies is that both my parents were teachers. I did think about being a teacher for many years. I thought about volunteering overseas as a teacher. I thought many times, it crossed my mind. But as you said, it came about ironically through someone coming to me and saying, can you come to my school? And so maybe I should have done this before. But something else I've learnt is that the jobs I've done before becoming a teacher have helped me in other ways. So now I think I have appreciation of marketing, sales, finance, communication, working with people. So no experience is bad if you can take something out of it. And I think any job you do, any experience you have, you can use in some way to either get a better job or just have some sort of life lesson out of it. Even at the time, if you feel really low, think to yourself, this will be useful for me at some stage in the future.
So when you wrote down your list of passions, do you now see a correlation to the passions you wrote down then and now you being able to fulfill maybe some of them in your job?
Yes, I think I love travel, and I teach international students, and I find that amazing to have students from all over the world. I love being with people. When I worked at the advertising company, I didn't speak to anyone, even my team colleagues. My manager would email me from half a metre away. It was just depressing. So I love being with people, and I love English. I did an English degree, after all, language and literature, so I'm using that. And I think clearly I do have some teaching genes in my family. My parents have 90 years, 100 years of experience. My dad is 82 nearly. He's still teaching.
Wow.
He's been teaching since 1959. It's a big thing for us. Maybe I should have done it before, but it's never too late. It's never too late. So I think that's important. Young people, 16, 17, 18, think sometimes they need to choose a career now. In many ways they do have to, but it could change. Maybe some of your parents have had 2 or 3 different jobs. Sometimes people have 2 or 3 different jobs at the same time, and that can be possible.
Thank you very much. It was amazing to have you on our podcast. And
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me.
A very inspiring story, definitely, and a lot of life lessons to take out of that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing the others.
See you soon! Fingerprints, a podcast embracing uniqueness, featuring real people and real stories.